Nuwa. Behold her children, who she lovingly detonates with a metal shard. An endless wave of mysterious fog which mysteriously does a ton of damage. And then of course she can call in the HTB Heavenly Thunderbolt homing missile strike attack aircraft, revealing and unleashing divine fury from the skies. But what do people love about Nuwa? And what do people hate? Well, before we start, let me tell you what I like. It's these guys, the Pebble Pals, the Dune Dudes, the Crumbly Crusaders. They can breakdance. Even in the afterlife, they can take a totem all by themselves, and they don't mind tanking towers. These are the friends I never had. You can even root Danzenbora's sake bottle. Why can you even root a sake bottle? Where's it going? Does it have friends? Is alcohol the enemy? Well, there's a reason Nuwa is the first video in this series. She's probably ranked the second most despicable creation, and when Nuwa stepped foot, or slid on tail, into the battleground of the gods, Ratatoskr was working overtime on delivering the complaints. And I think to a large extent what happens in these situations is rather than addressing the complaints, HiRez plays the waiting game. Wait long enough and those complaints just evaporate into the ether. Sure, it's a solid strategy, unless the battleground of the gods starts becoming populated by ghosts, where players should really be. Nuwa was a popular god in SMITE 1. She got the VIP treatment for SMITE 2. What made her popular though was her ability to perform. People typically like to play gods where they feel like they can have impact. You release a squad of clay babies which live long enough for you to name them, become attached, and mourn their loss, which is exactly why most players choose to detonate their children before forming that bond. It's a lot easier to hit those clones with a metal shard to the back of the head, detonating these suckers for big damage and a stun. The thing is though, these dirt dwarves are homing missiles. They do a little charge when they get close to the target, latching on like celestial bloodsuckers, and you'll have to dash to shake these little blighters off. Little tip, use the bushes to drop aggro on them. Hitting enemies with skill shots, that's hard. Hitting your own predictable mud children, much easier. Don't take this out of context. You are almost guaranteed to detonate those clay soldiers and hurt the enemy, whereas on other gods, there's more of a chance you'll miss stuff, and if you miss, you do no damage. Now, if you choose not to betray your babies, then they don't do too badly on damage. If you miss your metal shot, then you are still treated to the damage those baby warriors do. It's not just the damage they do though, they also block basic attacks. No, that's not quite right. They make hunters like Anher absolutely furious. More fury than the desert can hold. So Nuwa in the duo lane as a support can be a painful experience for characters relying on basic attacks. That's the clay clones doing the heavy lifting. And sometimes these things just body block a player without their consent, and it's not like the Nuwa player attempted to do that on purpose, it just happens. And that's what people love. The feeling of having impact, and it's easy to have impact as Nuwa. But on the other hand, if you're the player on the receiving end, there isn't a lot you can do about this. Actually, there are some things you can do, but the solutions are not obvious or natural. Take Poseidon. Grab an Aegis, use Aegis against his ultimate. It's a lot more obvious than the solutions to Nuwa, which, as a support, try and steal the aggro from the clay soldiers, and that comes with its own problems and difficulties. And that's the complaint people have when playing against Nuwa, a feeling of futility. Most god designs have this sentiment of fun to play, not fun to play against, and community sentiment behind Nuwa places her near the top. If you thought trying to avoid her sludge sluggers was hard, her ultimate is super auto-aim. Press that big red button and hit every enemy god. The damage isn't high to begin with, but later on this thing can take off a quarter of a squish's health, between 500 and 750 damage easily with a full build. You'll see Nuwa spam their ultimates a lot just to keep shaving health off people. But on top of that, this thing reveals all enemy locations like mother fluffing Sauron. Like, that's just free icing on the cake. That's so much map knowledge. Junglers hate this. Nuwa just decides to ult off cooldown and the poor enemy jungler is lit up. You can't gank in these conditions. It's basically RNG that denies the jungler a ganking opportunity. So next up is the fog. This thing you can spam out as well, and oh boy, do people spam this out. It's a decent size, with cooldown items you can always have fog up. This gives Nuwa incredible range, poke, and mobility. In a messy team fight, this is probably going to hurt, especially when coupled with percentage health damage items. Just merely licking one tick of the fog can result in you screaming for a medic. When two teams are staring each other down, Nuwa can just keep pressuring and pressuring with endless waves of fog, forcing the enemy into cramped conditions as they dodge. But if you're playing Nuwa, that's something to love. You can safely sit behind your team and send long-range misery. So I suppose that brings us to the Shard ability. Yeah, you use this thing to detonate the Clay Pals, and if you hit that shard and the Clay Pals, then that's big bursty damage. If you're playing Conquest though, it's about that early wave clear. You want fast wave clear? You got it. Shard the wave, and then your basic attacks turn into AoE. Then you can slap those archer minions down quickly and spend the free time watching your lane opponent's face light up with jealousy. You don't need to detonate your mucky munchkins to clear the wave. Your wave clear is good enough as it is, which means you can sick those lovely lads on the enemy whilst you clear the wave. Okay, what do we got left? The passive. Every 15 seconds, your next basic attack will root an enemy. This root can just sometimes happen randomly, and it is lethal. What a passive though, you don't even have to think about this and it just randomly pops up and nets you a kill. And that's what people find frustrating. When a player doesn't have to think about what they are doing, but then just reaps the benefits. So that's what I think people love and hate about Nuwa. Maybe you've got more reasons. Leave them in the comments or yell at me at Discord.
EP is a Patreon who helps me every day with every single pledge. My pets have food and play. The cats and dogs all thank you. They purr and wag their tails. Your kindness means so much to me. I think I might prevail.
And thank you Cinti, Josh Rose, Tess Cobbold, Zanil, Mad Demon Max, Atin RIP, Young Fuzz, Joe Karangi, Wolf King, and Care4. Thank you everyone.